Hey guys, it's John with the FJ Cruiser channel. So today I'm going to answer a question I've been pondering for a long time: to gear or not to gear? And I've chosen to gear. So, you know, I've added a front bumper to the FJ. I'm adding a winch to it. We've got a rooftop tent that we use quite often now. We're about to go to Colorado and do some camping and exploring, and really I need new gears on the car. So I've got 33-inch tires. I just got some brand new Nitro 33-inch tires, and accumulation of all those things combined have kind of slowed it down a bit. And every time you go up these hills, you kind of downshifts all the time, and it just doesn't have the pep that it really never really had that much pep to begin with. But it just, now it's even more sluggish. So I've decided to go with 456 gears. Now, I don't want to start a controversy. I know you read online, everybody's going 456, 488, go 48 or 456. So the reason why I decided to go with 456 gears is because most of my trips are really long distance. I go to Colorado and we do a lot of traveling, and so there's a lot of highway miles involved, and I really only have 33-inch tires. I know I'll probably go bigger someday, but I just got these tires, and I don't put more than about 5,000 miles maybe a year on the car, and really use it just for off-roading and trips of that nature. So I don't put that many miles. These tires are going to last a long time unless I go rock crawling and tear the crud out of them. So I'm just going to go with 456 gears, and I may regret it, or I may not. So but right now I've called ECGS, and I've got my gears lined up. What I'm gonna do is send them my differentials, and they're gonna upgrade the gears on it and send it back to me. So I'm not really doing a buy and then send them back the core charge. I don't really drive. I can have this vehicle sitting in my garage for a month or 2 months and not driving, and be cool with that. So, and I know I'll only have like 40,000 miles on the vehicle. So the front, and ECGS kind of has this deal to where they'll evaluate, I guess, your front bearings to see if they're still good. They'll replace it, I guess, if they're really beat up. But with 40,000 miles, hopefully those bearings are still pretty good, and I can get by with just using the same bearings in the front and replacing the bearings in the rear. So anyway, it's gonna be a long project. It's probably gonna take me I don't know, month and a half to complete it, but I just wanted to document it and capture some footage of some situations or some things that people may want to see when they're doing the FJ front rear diff change. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy it, and well, we'll see how it goes. Well guys, we got the car on jack stands on the front and on the back. It's lifted. I took the shield from under it. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and drain the front and the rear diff. Again, remove the fill plugs on both of them first, because if you can't get the fill plug out, you can't get oil back in it. So anyways, I'm going to drain it and then start disassembling the front here so I can get this drive shaft out, and then start lowering the diff. All right, so I'm on the driver's side. I'm looking at the front differential right here. There's the fill plugs at the top. It's a 10mm hex, and the drain plug is on the bottom here. It's also a 10mm hex. So just undo both of those, do the top one first, and then drain the differential on the front. All right, so this is a good time to kind of inspect. This is the drain plug. It's got a magnet on it, just to see how much. Yeah, there's quite a bit of all that sludge right there is metal particles. I guess it's not that bad. You just got to get it little by little and go all the way around, and then until you twist it. You can't pry it all at once from one corner. Everything's very tight in there. All right, minimal damage. This axle nut is a 35 millimeter. It's taken me a little while to go rent one from the auto store, but 35 millimeter. That's all it takes. All right, guys, so we got the 35 millimeter nut, and I was able to break that guy loose, so that's wide open. Next, we need to get the tie rod to get this nut out of here and break this guy apart, and then also the lower control arm, that nut out of there and break this guy loose, and then we'll be able to pound out. Then we'll be able to pound out the axle out. All right, guys, change of plans a little bit. I don't have a puller, and I don't want to damage this bolt here to release the lower control arm. So I'm going to remove these other two 19 millimeter bolts. It should allow this upper assembly to come free. Guys, I've pounded on this for a while. It's just not budging. I think it's kind of frozen. I'm gonna put a little bit of penetrating oil. I'll go check on my barbecue chicken. In about 10-15 minutes, I'll give it another whack.
This is your final chance to get these crazy bulk deals on mega ribeyes, Texas-sized T-bones, USDA prime fillets, half-pound burgers, all natural chicken breasts, and more. Visit any one of their 4 locations this week: Fire Creek Square, Lakeline Mall, Round and Round Premium Outlets, and Wolf Ranch Town Center in Georgetown. We won't be here long, so calm down this week and get 20 USDA choice stick-up fillets for $29 and half off all of their family.
All right, I'll come back in a little bit. Finally.
It was real tempting to get that crowbar and pry between the axle tube and the CV axle, but there's a real thin little dust cover that's in there, and I didn't want to bend it, so I figured the best way to do it was just to hammer and tap on these little ridges that are already on the CV axle, and with enough taps, eventually it comes right out.
Oh, it's coming out.
And when you're through with this side, just repeat the same steps on the driver's side.
All right, lights out. All right, guys, I wanted to mention something here on this switch on the differential. Basically, there's a little tab here, and because some of these they're all different. So this one, you just have to get a screwdriver from the top side and kind of push down on this tab, and and wiggle it out. So it's a little tricky, but it comes out if you push down straight down on that top tab. All right, so I got the other CV axle out on the driver's side, and then next is just removing these 4 bolts from the drive shaft, and that was pretty easy to do. I basically put a 14 millimeter socket on the back side to keep it from spinning, and then just a 14 millimeter socket on this side. They're both 14 millimeter sockets, and just they come out pretty easy, and then just a little light tap on this drive shaft and it pops right out. All right, the next thing is, let me see if I can get some light over here. So there's a mount on the back of this differential. It's a 12 millimeter hex wrench. I took it out, but then there's a big bolt. This is that sticks through this cross member right here. The problem with that is you got to lift that whole bolt above this cross member and go forward, and I'm not sure there's going to be room. So I took the top 17 millimeter nut that's on that attaches to that same 12 millimeter hex nut bracket, and so there's a 17 millimeter nut up here, and then there's a 17 millimeter nut just on this side on the bottom. So I took both of those out. That should allow the whole differential to slide forward as I drop the front. So I hope that works. All right, so on the driver's side, there are two vacuum lines that connect to the top side of the differential. There's a tiny little, like an 1/8 inch vacuum line, and then one that's like a 1/4 inch or a 3/8 inch vacuum line. You just gotta work your way. It's really tough to get in there because there's hardly any room, but I got some big long pliers, and I was able to remove the clip off of it, and then just and then kind of push them out. So now on the two front cross members here, I already removed it. It's basically a 22 millimeter bolt. Now the top one will start spinning, so you have to get a crescent wrench or something at the top, or unless you have a 22 millimeter wrench. But you gotta clamp the top of it, and you gotta get a long breaker bar to start turning this guy. So you start turning that guy and hold the top with the crescent wrench, and I put a little bit of penetrating lube in it to kind of help it out, and they come right out.
Now, removing the front differential was a real pain in the butt. It's at least a 2 or 3 person job. I couldn't tell what it was getting caught on, if it was the vacuum lines or if the rear flange was hitting the back of the bell housing, but it just didn't want to come out. If you recall, I had removed those 17 millimeter bolts that were on that rear mount. I think what did it was I also loosened the 12 millimeter hex nut, and it allowed that rear mount to pivot just a little bit, and finally it just slipped down.
Oh!
Congratulations, it's a baby boy.
I bent the crap out of these lines though. Alright, so the front diff is dropped. I'm gonna have to wait for tomorrow. I'm ordered some sockets. There's some bolts on here that are, I guess, Torx. I think they're a E14 Torx wrench or Torx head screws. So I had to order some Torx sockets. So I'm gonna deal with this tomorrow. Now I'm gonna move on to the back. All right, guys. So on this sensor over here, I was kind of wrong. There's a little tab, but you have to probably get the screwdriver just on the inside of it. And if you can see, if I put it just right in there and I twist the screwdriver, that little tab kind of pops up. So you have to put your screwdriver in there, not too far in the back because it doesn't do anything, but there's a little spot just on the top side of the plastic, and you stick it in there and you twist it, and then you're able to pull that dude out. And then you need to remove the brake line. It's a 10 millimeter nut, so we need to remove it, and then I'm going to cap it with something just so fluid doesn't, fluid doesn't get all over the place. So I'm going to do these two things, and then I'll show you what bolts are on the back side. We need to basically pull this axle out, I don't know, a few inches on both sides, and then start disconnecting the third member and dropping it. On the emergency brakes, I just removed that nut to give it some freedom for when you pull when you pull the axle out, it kind of goes with it, so it's got plenty of room. Now on these, there's 4 17mm nuts that you have to get out, and then you just wiggle this guy out, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, just enough to kind of clear the differential. All right, so now we're ready to start removing some of these. These are 14mm bolts right here holding the drive shaft, and I didn't count, but for sure these are all 14mm as well. What I'm gonna do is, because this drive shaft is balanced, I'm gonna use a punch to kind of mark the mount on this differential and a mark on the mount for the drive shaft. I'm not sure. I think it matters. I don't know. I've read some places that you want to align this back in the same orientation. So I'm gonna basically put a mark on the drive shaft. I know I'm only gonna put one mark on the downside and then one mark on the differential. Also, I've got just some wire. I'm gonna use that. Basically, there's a bracket with a hole up there. I'm going to use that as put my wire through that to kind of suspend this drive shaft and keep it out of the way while I'm removing all the nuts. Alright guys, so I didn't film this part, but I'll tell you about it. There's a motor that is attached to this, and the reason I didn't film it because I really didn't know how to take it out, and I've been working on it. But basically there are well, two of these nuts, when you take it out, is to take out the third member. Then there's another one over here. If you take all 3 of these out, and it doesn't feel like it wants to come out, but you just gotta wiggle it, and then I kind of used a very, very, very light taps with a rubber mallet, and kind of holding it on this side. And if you just barely wiggle it, that the whole motor will come out with the gear. And then there's another connection up here. I believe that one was like I don't know, maybe a 30mm socket. But anyways, you can basically just break that and slowly, and it just comes out as one piece. There's no wires or anything going to the inside. So that part you may want to remove if you're shipping it out like I am, to get it worked on, because you don't want that little plastic connection to break during shipping, because this thing is heavy. If it moves, gets any momentum and it leans on that, it could crack that. So and that's all I'm going to take out to ship it. So I'm taking the motor out and I'm taking that connection out. This feels pretty robust. So that's it with that. So now let's kind of disassemble the front differential. All right guys, so I had to break down the front clamshell a little further to get ready for shipping. They're basically 4 E14 Torx bolts on there. I didn't get a chance to record it, but there was no issues getting to them and breaking them. Just use a breaker bar and you can get these guys out, and then tap it with a hammer and it kind of loosens up, and you just pull it right out. So anyways, I'm getting ready to ship the front clamshell and the rear third member to East Coast Gear Supply. They're going to put 456 gears on these for me, and hopefully I'll get them back within a month or a little under a month. They claim about 2 to 3 weeks to do these, and like 2 or 3 day shipping both ways. So anyway, now it's the waiting game. I'll see you guys when I get these gears back from them. Well, I got my differentials in yesterday evening from East Coast Gear Supply. I just, first of all, just kind of want to look at how things were shipped. I'm not super impressed. I mean, there's a hole on the side of this box. It didn't go through the bottom, but I can feel it. There's not much. It doesn't sound like there's very much packing in there. And then on the other box, I didn't see any holes. Oh, well, except for the bottom. There's a big hole on the bottom. So, and it just sounds like they're really loose in there. So let's unpack it and see what it looks like on the inside. Well, it looks like they packed it really good on top. Okay, here's some paperwork. Actually, billing, some stickers, and I guess they packed the diff on the side pretty good. But look at the bottom. There's like one little thin. There's basically one layer of this guy at the bottom. But you know, it's gears. Maybe it's fine. And the hole through the box is going through both of them. I can put a finger all the way through. Similar, a little less packing than the other one. Basically something thrown on top and just a box in there, and with no extra padding on the flooring. A solenoid over there. I didn't take that out. Maybe recommend, if you guys ship them your rear diff, maybe take out that solenoid. I didn't do it thinking it was going to be fine. They were going to pack it really well. It's got a little dent on it. Hopefully it didn't booger it up. On it. I guess it looks pretty good. It looks like it's centered, not too high, not too low. And again, I'm not an expert at this. I've just seen a lot of YouTube videos. But you guys be the judge. I think it looks okay. Okay, it looks like they put a new seal in there too, which is a good thing. That mount, it's got even a lip on it. It just got dropped on the ground or something really hard several times. Got a big lip. I may have to grind that down a little bit so that these mounts are flush on it. All right, so I'm going to install the e-locker actuator. Now the specs basically want you to install it in the lock position. So you need to ensure that that last gear is approximately or all the way further to the left at center of the hole. So hard to see, but and it is. So basically, with it being all the way this way, it's in a locked position. Now when I removed my actuator, I had it in the unlocked position. So they tell you here that when installing the actuator, it needs to be within 0 or 5 degrees of these little groove marks that are on that actuator. And I can see on mine they're not. They're like, I don't know, they're like 90 degree or so off. So my concern is I was going to just slide this on the unlock position and reinstall it in the unlock position, but my concern is that I'm not sure how far it comes this way when you unlock it. So I don't want to guess at these gears when it's unlocked, because my concern is when I try to lock it again, it needs to go all the way flush this way to securely to lock it entirely. So I'm going to connect my actuator back to the car and put my negative terminal back on the battery and try to engage the e-locker so that the motor is back on lined up with this 0 or 5 degree groove mark. And once that happens, then I'll just unplug it and install it. This way I ensure that when I lock it, it's going to fully lock, and then when I unlock it, I don't know how far back it comes back this way. So that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully it works, and we'll see. I just wanted to give a quick update. So that procedure worked. I put I basically jacked it up a little bit, and I was able to I just wanted to verify that everything was working. So I plugged in the connections, and I had my wife push the button to activate the e-locker, and it locked and worked just fine. So if you take it off with it unlocked, do what you want. But basically what I did is, plugged the actuator in, left it in the lock position, unplugged it, mounted it, and then I just verified it works. So it's always good, I guess, if you can. I didn't have anything to put it up there. It's really heavy, so I just got it on the jack and lifted up as high as I could, connected all the connections, and held it up there in place while she pushed the button, and everything was fine. So anyway, just wanted to give you that update that worked. Alright. Sorry you couldn't see that, but it was more important for me to see. That was not as hard as I thought it was gonna be. Alright, so now these bolts I believe are 18 foot-pounds. I will double check and correct myself if it's not 18 foot-pounds, and get her done. Alright guys, so I got that in there, and I've got it torqued to 18 foot-pounds all the way around. The FIPG, I guess this, it's Toyota brand, but for some reason it's black and not orange. That's okay, maybe they changed it. I'll put a link to this in the comments below of all the parts I bought. Now I'm ready to start just making sure I've got all the connections plugged in, and I got the axles already pushed in, and make sure that, before you torque all this, get your axles in there and make sure they're seated inside with the gearing. And that's it. Now I'm going to start putting together the drive shaft, and my 2 marks are still right there. I'm going to line them up, and that's it. So let's continue on. All right, so I forgot one thing. There's this little cover, I guess, just to kind of protect the actuator. I forgot to put that in, so I had to get one of the bolts out, and just note to self, don't forget to put this in. All right, so next I'm going to put in the 4 bolts for the rear axle. Those are 91 foot-pounds. After, I'm going to do both sides and then connect the brake line. All right, so I put the stabilizer bars back on. These stabilizer nuts here were I think 22 foot-pounds of torque, and the end of the stabilizer bar, you basically need a Allen wrench to stick it in there in the middle and hold it and keep it from spinning as you tighten. All right, that should be all of them. Let's double check. All right, so now we're assembling the front clamshell. putting the tube back on the clamshell. I put some more FIPG in there, and these are Torx E14 bolts. And the torque spec for this is 81 foot-pounds. I've already torqued the bottom ones. I'm just need to finalize and torque these two, and let this guy sit for a while and let that FIPG settle in. They are all torqued. Alright, so now I'm installing the other front support. I put a little bit of Loctite on these, but very little. I didn't call for it, but I just wanted to make sure, just to dab of Loctite on it. These are 137 foot-pounds of torque for these guys. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to do that without leverage. But I'll try my best. And this is a 19 millimeter socket. Woo! Not as hard as I thought. Well, I guess if you don't weigh 137 pounds, this is going to be hard, but I don't have any problem with that. All right, the last thing we got to put on here is this vacuum lines. So basically, this was bent a little bit from shipment, and it just twists. It's loose in there, so I think it just fits in there with another rubber grommet down here. So I was able to turn it just a little bit, and I'm just going to put the screw in here and hope that I don't get these caught on all kinds of stuff like I did trying to get it out, but hopefully going in will be a little easier than coming out. Now you're gonna have to, all right, keep going. I mean, I think I'm just, okay, lower it just a little bit. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna try to lower the side with my knee while keeping this one up so I can get the, I think we got it, babe. All right, keep going up a little bit. If I can just get this in here. Shit. Lower it. Take one of, a little bit more. This, if I can push that in there and you just get that in there, at least it's one mount that we don't have to freaking jack with. If you get that, we're golden. Okay, obviously I don't think you can't tighten it, but you got it threaded a couple times. Okay, so it's not going to go anywhere. Give me 5, Mama. Give me a fist bump. All right. Now. All right. So for the front drive shaft, this is basically the same thing as the rear. Bolt and washer go on this side, and then the nut goes on the back side of that mount there, and just torque it to 65 foot-pounds. No way. All right, I got it out. There's a little hole on the top of this brace right here. I mean, it barely fits that guy, and for some reason, it found its way in there instead of just bouncing around. So just don't do that again. And make sure you leave your car in neutral. I accidentally didn't, but I was able to take that little, in front of the gear shifter, there's a little plastic tab that you lift up. Because I don't have my battery connected, I couldn't put it in neutral. So a little plastic tab, you lift it up, and there's a little button you just push down with the screwdriver tip. So you push down with the screwdriver tip, and I was able to put that in neutral. So now I can rotate my drive shaft. I think that's in there. Let me try a couple. All right, so I've got that CV axle put in there. Basically, I had this pulled out of the way, the whole assembly here pulled out of the way. And when you put that CV axle in, make sure the cotter pin is, facing this way so that gravity is pulling it down. If it's upside down, then it's going to be I've heard it's going to be a little harder to put in. All right, one more thing, guys. I loosened up all of these brake lines, basically because there's a lot of tension on this brake line when you're trying to move this whole assembly out as far as you can to put that CV axle in. But by removing these brake lines, you don't put that much tension on it, and you don't take a risk of breaking them. So I forgot to mention that part. All right, so I just moved the CV axle through here, and I forgot to record it, but it's basically just moving it around, positioning it to where the shaft goes right through. So now I'm on the lower bolt, lower ball joint bolts. I'm gonna put a little red Loctite on it because I think they had some Loctite on it when I removed it. And the way I'm gonna try to do it is put one in first. Just kind of loose. All right, so I'm gonna try to get the axle nut and pull the shaft through a little bit by tightening it. Too much space right here on this lower ball joint. I can't get it to fit, so I'm gonna try to suck this guy in a little bit, see if that works. All right, it still has a little ways to go, but I'm gonna finish it with the torque wrench. But I think that hopefully sucked this guy up a little. And now it's right on the ball joint. Perfect. A little Loctite on it, and we're in business. Lower ball joints, these torque to 118 foot-pounds. The tie rod castle nut is on now, and that's 67 foot-pounds. All right, so we got the castle nut in there, 67 foot-pounds torqued. I still got to torque the lower ball joints. The nuts down here for 118 foot-pounds. And I still need to torque this axle nut to 174 foot-pounds. Other than that, guys, just gonna, I've got to go bleed the brakes, fill the diffs, both front and the back, clean up and take her for a test drive. Anyways, thanks a lot for hanging in there. I know this was a long video. I hope that you got something out of it. It's a lot of work. The front diff is really difficult. If you have someone to help, well, you have to. I think you just need somebody to help there. You can't. It's not a one-person job. If you have two guys, you may be able to do it without a jack. So, but the jack method wasn't so bad. Basically, the best way that we found to do it was to use the two arms on the ground, lift it straight up, bring it up, and lift the driver's side up higher so that the vacuum lines go behind the power steering lines. And once that vacuum line is behind the power steering lines, then you can raise the passenger side up. So basically, come up this way, go around. It's like a dance. Go around the power steering lines, and then you can come all the way up. I know this, I'm long-winded here. Thanks again for watching this. I hope you got something out of it. So if you like this video, please like and share and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.